I was fortunate to coach Derrick Rose from his rookie year through to his third season, which was the year he won MVP. And Derrick is one of the best athletes to ever play the game of basketball. He's probably, of course, I'm biased. Um, I would say he is at the point guard position. He's the best athlete to ever play the game of basketball. He's the fastest, basketball player in the history of the game. Um, but and this was something I learned from Eric and especially Al Vermeil, who was my first year. Al was still around in a consultant role, and so he played a big impact on me. And for those that don't know, Al is basically like the Mount Rushmore of strength and conditioning coaches. In fact, he's the only coach who has a Super Bowl ring with the San Francisco 49ers back in the Bill Walsh days, Joe
Uh-huh.
Montana, all those guys. And he also has 6 NBA championships. He's the only one to, have rings in both.
Same.
And so learning from him, learning from Eric, one of the things they would always talk about is like, don't mistake, someone's athleticism or athletic ability for their trainability. They're actually two very different things.
Mm.
And Derek was a perfect example of that. Derek came to us as a rookie and really had never seen the inside of a weight room. Now he's the most freak, insane, gifted athlete you've ever seen. But, and I think people do, they like mistake that. They see someone like that and we're like, oh, we're going to do all this advanced, like crazy looking training and extreme plyometrics and, on and on. You know what Derek needed to do? Body weight squats, elevated, not even regular push ups, elevated push ups,
Mm.
with everything with a pause and, everything was kind of body weight, isometrics, combination patterns like a squat to row. So it's assisting his squat pattern. So he's, developing that, cables, dumbbells. I mean, with Derek, we probably didn't touch a bar until his second season with us, And so I think that's maybe for me, the fact that I was able to coach at that level so early in my career and kind of see that and see several guys like that, like Derek, as well as like several guys on the other end of the spectrum, and especially some of your veterans where you saw the the level at which that they were able to train being such a big piece to the longevity, of their career. And you saw both sides of it. You also saw, all these because I think it's comfortable for us in the field to live in these absolutes of, oh, and you would hear it back then. I still hear it a little, not as much, but you say, oh, tall guys shouldn't squat, or tall guys shouldn't, Olympic lift, or do this or do that, or basketball players shouldn't do this, or, tall guys shouldn't pull from the ground. Like, and it's like, well, like, why not? And again, if you take, and that's what we did, that N=1 approach, it depends, and I saw that where like actually in my time with the Bulls, um, our most proficient Olympic lifter and probably lifter in general was Omer Ashik, who was like 7'2" or something like that. I mean, it was insane. He would snatch, from mid shin, he'd snatch 80, 90 kilos, like perfect technique, catch it, and ride it down beyond parallel in a overhead squat. Where if you were doing the FMS with him with that load, you would score at a three. And then meanwhile we had, and on the other end of the spectrum, I'm not going to call him out, but we had like one player in particular who was, under 6 foot guard, who I would never do any of that stuff with because he was kind of jacked up in terms of hit, really tight in different areas and his mobility. And or even like we touched on with Derek, like we weren't doing that, but eventually we got Derek into doing, some barbell complexes and stuff like that. And so I think that was the other thing that I learned is like throw these sort of, you know, preconceived notions or narratives out the window and just approach each person as an individual and identify where are they at, what do they need, and how
Yeah.
can I help them from where they are to where they're, trying to go.